Welcome to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Sarah. So happy to be with you for another author interview. Hope your week is going well. As we get started, you know what's coming. I want to remind you to please like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're either listening to or watching this episode on. Really does help the algorithm, helps get this podcast out to more readers, and it is greatly appreciated, as is all of your support. If you want to support the podcast and the network as a whole in a slightly different way, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net. There you can leave a tip or a donation. And a donation? Muscle memory. I'm so used to saying tip or donation. You can leave a gift to the podcast, a gift to the network. It really does help. It is greatly appreciated. It is completely up to you whether this is something you want to do in terms of giving your support. As I say all the time, all of your support is greatly appreciated, whether that's liking, following, subscribing, following on social media, sharing the episodes, talking about the episodes, listening to the episodes, watching the episodes. Every little bit of support helps. But if you are of a mind to, you can go to gsmcpodcast.net and give a monetary gift as well. Thank you, as always, for everything you do to make this podcast possible. I am very, very appreciative of you and your support. How is your week going? We are here smack in the middle of the week. Hope you had a good weekend. We had more rain, but just a little bit. But my hubby said the other day, it's done raining. It's done raining. And I said, why did you say that out loud? And then it wasn't immediate. It wasn't like he said, it's done raining, and then the clouds opened up. But it was a day or two later, and it just was when I looked out during the middle of a lesson and it was pouring. So when we were both between lessons, I had to go give him a hard time about making it rain again. But it really hasn't been bad. I've been able to get out and walk several times. The grocery store is a little over a mile away, so I walk there frequently. I walk with the dogs every night, and so it's been very nice. We have lots of flowers blooming, and I'm very appreciative of the signs of spring and the sunshine, all of that good stuff. So it's been a good week with teaching. I smile. I've been trying to write down all the funny things my students say because they, as you know, a lot of them are kids. I do teach adults as well, but a lot of them are kids, and they can come up with some pretty hilarious things sometimes. One likes to tell me jokes, and they're usually puns or plays on words, which I think is great because English is not her first language. And so the fact that she is A, 9, and B, speaking in a language that's not her own, and she can tell me jokes that involve wordplay, I think is really amazing. So I love when she tells me jokes because she has the absolute best giggle, but also because it's great for her vocabulary and fluency development. Anyway, we are here to, of course, talk about words and talk about language, but in a very specific context, and that context is this week's author. I am speaking with Shanna Hatfield about her novel, The Bridge. Remember when I introduced this last week, I said, it kind of looks like a thriller. Is it a thriller? You'll have to tune in to find out. Well, spoiler alert, not really a spoiler alert, but it is not a thriller. There are elements of tension within the book, but let me give you the description of the book. On a bridge suspended above the Willamette River, 5 lives collide for a journey through hope and hardship in a suspenseful, heartwarming tale of courage, connection, and the magic of second chances. Sergeant Archer Raines has worked every holiday all year for one reason: to finally spend Christmas with his wife. But when a desperate man threatens to jump from Portland's St. John's Bridge, Archer's expert negotiation skills are required to defuse the situation. Rosalee, a high-powered accountant and mom-to-be, only meant to swing by home for a forgotten phone and a client file. Then her car is caught in the chaos on the bridge. She unexpectedly goes into labor, and her carefully planned world begins to unravel amidst the unfolding drama. Exhausted nurse Nova just wants to make it home for Christmas after too many night shifts. When the pileup halts traffic and Rosalee's baby is on the way, Nova puts her own plans on hold to help a stranger in need. Carter, the owner of a busy tow truck business, regrets taking the call to clear the multi-car collision off the bridge. He'd intended to spend the day tackling last-minute holiday errands. Instead, he's praying the lunatic pointing a gun at him doesn't pull the trigger. Fresh out of college and anxious to start his career, Ian's running late when his car won't start the morning of his big interview. His rideshare driver turns out to be a captivating girl with a penchant for aggressive driving that narrowly saves him from being part of the wreck on the bridge, sending Ian on an unexpected path of his own. The Bridge is the perfect uplifting holiday read and a story of how one frozen moment can thaw even the loneliest of hearts. And so, as you hear, that is the description of The Bridge. There is a lot of tension in this book. There is the situation on the bridge, which is at the center of all of the action and all of the connections that happen throughout the book. There are a lot of connections between these characters in ways that I'm not going to give away, but they cross in unexpected ways. And the what happens on the bridge is part of that. So the book starts with Archer getting the call to go to the bridge to negotiate with the jumper. The man has pulled his truck and trailer across all 4 lanes of traffic, so he blocked traffic, caused multiple collisions, and then of course he is threatening to jump, and they can't determine if he has a gun or not. They are trying to figure that out. So that's where we start. Everyone is trying to make sure everyone on the bridge gets off the bridge safely, and everyone on the bridge has now had their day completely disrupted, of course. Rosalee is one of them. She's just trying to get home for that lost phone and that client file so that she can finish her day and go about celebrating Christmas and getting ready for the birth of her baby. The baby, of course, decides, you know what? We're going to do this early. Hey, Christmas Eve sounds like the perfect time to maybe be born on a bridge. So it just jumps from there. It is a quick read. The action moves fast as everyone's experiences are happening and you're trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen? Who is, what are the connections? Why are these 5 strangers? Is there a reason the 5 strangers are all brought together? It is in many ways, very heartwarming, and it does take place at Christmas. So you might want to read it at Christmas, but you don't have to. I read it the beginning of March, and I love reading a themed book. I love to read Christmas books at Christmas, so this one would have been great at Christmas, but it also feels like one that you can read anytime. Is it a Christmas book? Yes, in that it is set at Christmas. Die Hard Christmas movie set at Christmas. Lots of movies, you can make those arguments. I'm not going to go into that argument. You can make your own decision, but it is set on Christmas Eve, and all of the action happens on Christmas Eve. So if that feels like a Christmas book to you, then it is a Christmas book. If that feels like a book that just happens to take place on Christmas Eve, you can read it anytime. But there is a lot of heart in this book, a lot of hope in this book, a lot of kindness in this book, which if you're looking for a book to just lift up your mood a little bit, there is tension. As I said, that opening scene definitely brings tension, but it is not as a thriller. As I said, it's not a thriller in that it's going to just like your heart is pounding the entire time you're reading it. It's a fast read, but not fast paced in the way that thrillers can be, where you're just trying to get everybody through the book and hopefully none of your favorite characters are affected too badly. Not that kind of book, but there is tension at the center of it. All right, let's go ahead and let Shanna talk about the book and the writing of it. Again, it is called The Bridge. The author is Shanna Hatfield. Hi, Shanna. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. It's a treat to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to have you here. Thank you again. And we're going to talk about your book, The Bridge. But before we get to the book, would you take just a moment to share a little bit about yourself so my listeners can get to know you?
Absolutely. I grew up on a farm in Eastern Oregon, and I feel like all those childhood experiences I had, besides hay fever, gave me a really good foundation for writing the books that I write. Most of my books are set on ranches or farms or in small towns, and they're all very wholesome and heartwarming. And so I feel like my childhood really gave me a great foundation for that. And then My husband and I still live in Eastern Oregon, just a few hours drive from where we grew up, and we love to travel. We like to visit museums and go to antique stores because I have ever expanding collection of antique dishes. So I'm always on the hunt for another piece to add, even though I don't need them. What else? I take photos just for fun, do a little photography. I enjoy gardening when the weather's nice. I spend way too much time drooling over recipes and photos on Pinterest,
Mhm.
and I just really enjoy life. It's a beautiful thing.
Wonderful. What dishes are you collecting?
I have an assortment. If
Okay.
they're old and pretty, that's pretty much all they have to
Okay,
have to
so
have to qualify. So
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, my mom and my brother and my aunt all collect dishes as well. But for them,
Oh,
for
yeah.
my mom at least, it's Homer Laughlin. So I am always flipping plates over if I to see what it says underneath. Um,
Yeah, that's so fun. I started with my grandma gave me her dishes. My grandpa bought them for their 10th anniversary, and that was way back in the 30s, I
yeah,
think. So, yeah, that was my first collection of dishes. From there, it's grown quite a bit.
yeah. I think it might be a little addicting.
It is addictive.
Yeah. Well, as I said, the book is called The Bridge. Can you give an overview of the story?
Sure. So the bridge is set on a bridge on Christmas Eve. There's 5 points of view, so 5 different characters that are involved in this, and it's set in Portland, Oregon. The story has romance like I usually write, but that's sort of in the back seat. There's more suspense, more mystery, more intrigue and drama, and I guess it would probably fall into women's fiction.
Mhm.
There's some definite really cool relationships that build just in the course of that Christmas Eve day when the story takes place.
Yeah. And people who've listened or watched the podcast for a while know that I've been doing a lot of thrillers lately. It seems like thrillers kind of come in waves as I interview people. And so my brain is just automatically set to that. So the cover looks a little bit more like a thriller than. than people might
Some
expect when they
cozy
start reading the
romance.
story, or they might have
Yes.
something else in mind. Um, but it's not that kind of like there is tension, but not that like, oh,
No,
seriously heart pounding.
no, it's not the heart pounding, but it does have some drama in
Yeah.
there. Their person of crisis adds to that a lot. So
Yes.
yeah.
As I said in the introduction, there is tension within the book. It is not a thriller, but there is definite tension and some pretty serious tension with the character of the man on the bridge who is threatening to jump, who may or may not have a gun. But that tension adds to the overall pace of the book and the center of a lot of the book. But it is, like I said, nothing that is absolutely terrifying. So the eek and the ick factor are very low for this book. And if you, like I said, there's a lot more humor and heart and warmth and kindness in this book, heightened by the tension. We're going to go ahead and take our first break of this episode. When we come back, Shanna will talk more about writing a book from 5 different points of view. You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I will be right back.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life, cause I don't feel alive, and there's nothing that makes me happy. Hold my beer for a minute, I'm about to quit my job, cash in for a ticket. I'm going on a trip and I don't plan to visit. I'm gonna stay there till I feel like I'm winning, and this is just the beginning. I need a big change, help me feel like living. I need a big swing, home runs I'm hitting, and I'll never look back, moving on till I get it all. And we all got dreams, we all want things, but what you gonna do for it? How you gonna move for it? What you gonna be? And do you believe you can do anything?
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Shanna Hatfield. As we get back into this second break, just a quick final reminder that if you want to help out the podcast and the network as a whole in a financial way, you can do so by going to gsmcpodcast.net, and there you can leave that gift, which helps not only the podcast, as I said, but the entire network. That support, again, as I keep saying and have said and will say, is entirely, very much appreciated. It's not good grammar, but the sentiment is true. So gsmcpodcast.net. Thank you as always for everything you do to support this podcast. Before the break, we were talking about the tone of the book, the fact that there is that heightened tension with one element of the book, with one character in the book, but that there are so many other moods and feelings and experiences within the book in addition to that heightened tension. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with Shanna. Were there challenges to writing from 5 different points of view?
No, I think the biggest challenge for me was just kind of bringing it all together at the end. And I won't give away any spoilers, but it was really fun to explore 5 different points of view and just kind of get into the heads of 5 very different characters and how they're experiencing this day.
Yeah. Was there any one that was maybe easier to kind of get into that point of view, into their headspace?
Absolutely. Nova is one of the characters, and she's a nurse, and she just has the biggest, warmest heart. And she is the kind of person that you would love to live next door to or be friends with. She's just a really, really neat person, and I really connected with her as far as her character. I loved writing about her, getting into her mind, writing her point of view, and also just writing her interactions with the other characters.
Another character, and the character that we start with, Archer. The cover of your book says an Archer Reigns novel. Will there be others, or are there others?
There aren't others yet. That doesn't mean there won't be. I haven't jumped into writing the next Archer Reigns novel yet, but I do have ideas for a few more stories where Archer gets to be the hero and the main focus.
So what about Archer do you think will resonate with readers?
I think he's just such a relatable, everyday kind of guy. I mean, he's a police sergeant, but the story starts out, he's laid back, he's eating his bowl of sweetened fruit cereal that he hardly ever allows himself to eat. And so it's a treat, and he's just thinking about how this Christmas Eve day is going to be great and all the expectations that we all have on special days. And I just think he's a really relatable hero.
Yeah. None of the 5 points of view, none of those characters, for them, Christmas Eve is not going the way any of them planned. So that is kind of that's kind of the central point. I mean, there are other central points, but for each of these 5 characters. So talk about writing these stories that are separate, but there are some points of intersection, and kind of bringing that all together. Was there a way that you kept track of all of their storylines, or did you just kind of have it in your head?
I mostly had it in my head because I knew where I wanted them all to end up. So as I was writing, I was just driving each point of view to that connection point.
Yeah. And when you sit down to write, do you do a lot of character development before you start writing, so you have a really clear picture, or do you prefer to let each character evolve as you write?
A little of both. I'm very, very visually oriented, and so I have to have like an actual visual picture of the characters before I start writing. So that circles back to Pinterest. I create a board for every book that I write, and so when I figure out what that character looks like, I start building that board with them in different poses and different backgrounds. And once I get a very, very clear picture in my mind of what this character looks like, everything else sort of falls into place, like their personality and their quirks and what they like and don't like. All that just kind of follows once I have that visual representation of the characters. But as far as completely developing them, I kind of know who they are and what they are and what they do. But as the story evolves, I like their characters to evolve as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you have that visual representation of every character, like even some of the characters that we don't see for more than a page or two?
I only do the main characters. So, like with the bridge, I had our 5 points of view and the person in crisis. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had basically the
Okay.
six people.
Okay, interesting. And have your characters ever, I'm sure there will be little things that you aren't expecting, but have they ever really surprised you where you went, that is not what I expected this character to do?
Sometimes, not with this book, but some that I've written, I've been totally caught off guard, like, oh, well, this isn't what I had planned for you. But sometimes they just take on a life of their own.
Yeah. Um, which I just find fascinating because I think some people would want more control, and you just I've talked to so many authors who say you just don't have that control.
You don't. I it's been many years ago, but I was writing about he was former military and he had post-traumatic stress disorder, and I was so involved thinking about that next scene when I was driving home from work. I looked down and I was doing like 85 on the highway, which is 55, so
Yeah.
don't tell. But I just, I was thinking about his anxiety and what he was going through. And it was just like, oh my gosh, I got so into his head. I had completely left mine. So
Yeah.
it's sometimes fun and sometimes not so fun when the characters really pull us into them,
Yeah.
into their lives.
I would imagine. I grew up in Montana. We didn't have a speed limit most of my childhood, so I won't tell. I can understand that character development and the way characters can pull you in or kind of change their direction and make you think about what's going to happen next can sometimes be fun and sometimes not be fun, as Shanna mentioned, but they really should never try to get you pulled over. That is not helpful. Fictional character, do not get the author pulled over, then your story will never, well, maybe not never, but she might not want to write your character anymore. I have been there, maybe not with character development, but you get lost in thought and then suddenly you are driving a little faster than you should. But we are going to go ahead and take our second break of this episode. When we come back, the fact that the story is set on Christmas Eve, would it be different if it was set at another time of the year? You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and my conversation with author Shanna Hatfield. Before the break, we were talking about being so attuned to the character that Shanna was driving maybe a touch over the speed limit and needed to bring her mind back to the present and slow down a little bit. Let's go ahead and return to the conversation with Shanna. Did you ever consider setting this at a different time of year? And how do you think the story would be different if it wasn't on Christmas Eve?
The reason I chose Christmas Eve is because I was just thinking about it doesn't matter who you are, whether you celebrate the holiday or not, it is a chaotic day. Like there's so many people out, there's so many things going on. Christmas Eve just kind of impacts everybody. And so that was the reason I chose it, is for the maximum impact of the person in crisis, his choice. could impact so many more people that way, I thought, on
Yeah,
Christmas Eve than it would just on a random Tuesday or whatever.
right.
So I think the story itself would be very similar. It's just that it adds to what he is taking away from the five main characters. Like they are all busy, they all have plans, they all have things happening because it's Christmas Eve.
Right.
That I don't think would have been quite as impactful if it had been set on a different day.
There's one scene that made me laugh where I believe it's Carter has to go to the grocery store on Christmas Eve and just it's the experience of the kind of the horror that is a grocery store on Christmas Eve.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's just little things like that, like whatever random day, it would not have that same impact of him having to go to the store if it wasn't chaotic Christmas Eve afternoon kind of
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. It's one interesting thing about living in a different country, like the day before Thanksgiving, or I can go to the store on Thanksgiving and it's just, a regular Thursday here. But in my brain, I'm always like, oh, I got to go to the store because it's no,
You're fine.
I'm fine. Any particular research that you did for the story?
I did do quite a bit of research for the story. I connected with a couple people at the Portland Police Bureau because I really wanted to make it realistic, like what would happen on this bridge if there was a person in crisis and you had to shut it down? Like, how does that work? And how long would you shut it down for? And a lot of those kind of questions. I actually took a master class from a former FBI negotiator to really dive into what Archer was doing and what he would be thinking and how he would be interacting with the person in crisis. And that was super, super helpful. And then just I dove into like the St. John's neighborhood. What kind of stores and shops are there? What kind of restaurants would they be eating at? Or, just all the things there. I even looked at homes that were for sale just so I could get a visual in my mind of what types of neighborhoods, what the houses might look like, what the streets are like. What else did I look up? Just some of the places where Ian and Kate visit. I've just looking into making places that they go realistic. So just all those kind of things, because I feel like the more realistic it is, the easier it is for readers to become part of the story.
Yeah. Obviously, you've chosen a bridge because that's kind of maximum disruption of a lot of people's days, and that is your starting off point. But was there any particular reason for the St. John's Bridge in Portland, or could it have been any bridge?
It could have been any bridge. It didn't have to be that bridge, but once I decided I wanted to put the story on a bridge, I started looking at all the different bridges in Portland, and that was the one that just stood out to me. It has so much history. It's such a landmark in Portland because you can go into shops and see it painted in a mural on a wall, or you'll find it on, travel brochures. It's really such an iconic bridge in Portland. It also is a beautiful bridge. The architecture of it is just really beautiful, and I loved the way it looked on the cover. It just was a perfect bridge for this story.
Your website, the tagline on your website is heart, humor, hope. You could probably add hay fever. But what draws you to writing with those three themes in mind?
To me, I feel like the world is a dark enough place without me adding to that. And so I feel like writing is an opportunity to share a little light. And so to me, that light I can share is through those three things, through heart, humor, and hope. I think we all need to laugh. We all need moments of lightheartedness and fun. And so I always try and incorporate a little bit of that in my books. But also hope is just such an important thing to have. And I try really hard to have my characters hang on to hope. And, even when things seem like there's no reason for it, I like them to just pull on that little thread of hope to carry them through. And my hope is that it helps my readers too, to just know that there's always hope. There's always that little glimmer of hope.
Yeah, exactly. As I was looking through your website, you are a prolific writer. How many novels do you have published?
My 141st came out at the end of January.
That's amazing. That must feel like such an accomplishment.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. And so what are you currently working on?
I'm working on, it's really it's going to be a novella, so not a long book, but it's in my Hearts of the West series. So they're all kind of Western themes, set somewhere Oregon, Idaho, Washington. And this particular one is about a couple who are a little older. He's in his 60s, she's in her 50s. He's a rodeo pickup man, and she is a photographer who does these beautiful coffee table books of portraits. And so they don't really seem like they should connect, but they're both kind of at that point in life where they are not looking to connect with somebody, but they just connect. So it's been really fun to work on it.
Yeah. And I love that they're in their 50s and 60s because, I feel like 29. Every female character in a romance is 29. and, it's been a day or two since I was 29, and that's okay, but it's nice to also see some variety. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. Our characters need to be of all ages.
Yeah, because we don't stop having romance or relationships or any kind of relationship, platonic or romantic, after our 20s.
No, for sure.
Yeah. The more I thought about it, after I said so many characters, female characters, especially in books, are 29, I think it's more like 27, but maybe it's right around. I feel like there was a period of time where every female character I read, the main character was 27. Maybe not now, but that's the way I felt for a while. Maybe now it's 29. I don't know. But the whole point is that I do appreciate a variety of ages in the books that I read. I don't mind reading about main characters who are in their 20s, but I also like to read about main characters who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s, beyond. Lots of different perspectives and ages and experiences. I just like a wide variety. We're going to go ahead and take our final break of this episode. When we come back, did Shanna always want to write? You're tuned in to the GSMC Book Review Podcast, and I'll be right back. Welcome back to the GSMC Book Review Podcast and the conclusion of my conversation with author Shanna Hatfield. Before the break, Shanna was talking about her current work in progress, but let's go ahead and return to that conversation with Shanna. Was writing something you've always wanted to do? What kind of led you to that decision to publish?
I have always wanted to write a book. I grew up with a mom who loved to read and shared that love with me from an early age. And my dad always told these really fun stories. And so I feel like he influenced the storytelling part. And and mom influenced the book part of it. And so I always wanted to just write some wonderful story, but I didn't even start until 16 years ago. And once I got started, I can't seem to stop. I just love it.
Yeah, you have not slowed down since, I would imagine. So you must write quite a lot each day then.
I do. I don't write a lot every day, but when I'm in writing mood, I just write. Like I can spend hours and not even realize the time has passed. I just get really focused and just write. And I love it. I feel super blessed to get to do something I love so much every day.
Yeah, that's wonderful. What advice would you give someone who is thinking they have a story in them to write?
They need to write it. If they really want to write, just do it. Don't listen to the people who tell you it's too hard or you can't. If you want to write, just write. And I think even if all they do is write one sentence, if that's all they get done in a day, then just do that. Like just do what you can do, but never give up.
Yeah, thank you. When you take time to read just for you, you said you're a reader. Who are your favorite authors and your go-to genres?
I read a little bit of everything. Maybe not so much thrillers, but I will read contemporary, historical, medieval. I read a lot of nonfiction, mostly for research purposes, but I love to read. I have some favorite authors. I love Karen Whitemeyer. I love Mary Connolly. I mostly read Christian fiction just for fun. Who else do I love? Oh, Francine Rivers. I also get a kick out of Sheila Roberts and Melinda Curtis. Their books are so funny. They're just a fun escape for me to get into those books. And of course, Debbie McCumber. She's an incredible writer and a wonderful human.
And there's a quote from her on the cover of this book that says, when she needs that kind of book for her, she picks up one of yours, which would have me fangirling. You would not believe.
I do. Every time I get to see her, I totally feel like a fangirl. But she's just the most wonderful, sweet lady. And I feel really, really fortunate to have had the opportunity to become friends with her.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I've mentioned your website. So if you can tell people where they can find your website and any social media that you're active on.
Absolutely. So website is easy. It's shannahatfield.com. And you can find all of my books there and my blog and some other fun stuff. And as far as social media, I am on Instagram and X, and I spend most of my time on Facebook, though. And I have a readers group called Hopeless Romantics there on Facebook, where I hang out with my readers and we just have so much fun. And then I also have an author's page on Facebook, and it's just Shanna Hatfield.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Shanna, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you really wanted to highlight or talk about during this time?
I just would say that I love my readers. I appreciate them so much, and I love interacting with them one-on-one. I feel like I've made so many good friends through my readers. And so if you haven't read my books yet, I hope you'll give them a look. And if you enjoy it, I always love hearing from my readers too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I enjoyed talking to you, and I really appreciate you talking to me about the bridge and writing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's been wonderful to be here with you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you again to Shanna for joining me to talk about the bridge. If you go to her website, you will see that she is quite a prolific writer. I think, what did she say, 144 books? So you can see those all on her website. If maybe you're looking for a non-Christmas Eve book, you can go and see, she actually has a lot of Christmas books. So if you're looking for a new Christmas author, she might be the person for you. But specifically, if you are looking for a book that is full of a lot of very connected, interesting characters who are connected in ways you might not expect, but whose lives are connected because of this incident on the bridge, and you want to find out just exactly what the mystery is about the person on the bridge who starts all of these events. The chain of events sets that in motion. You definitely should check this out. There is that tension that helps to propel the story, but is not terrifying. You might have some questions. You might wonder what the motivation of this character is, and you might be surprised at what the motivation turns out to be, but you have to read it to find out. So if you are looking for a book that has some thriller tendencies, but is not scary and has a very warm overall feel to it, then definitely check out The Bridge, and also go to Shanna's website and look at some of her other titles as well, because she does have a lot to choose from. So you may have just found a new author, and I love when I find a new author, but when I find a new author who gives me such a huge catalog to go through, that makes my day. It's like a late Christmas present. It's set on Christmas Eve, gives you a late Christmas present, maybe an early spring present, whatever you want to call it. At any rate, thank you to Shanna for joining me. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I hope you'll join me for the next episode. We have a returning author. That author is Carmela Dutra. She's been on the podcast twice before, talking about her children's books. And now, as you see in the titles next to me, she is writing cozies. So A Murder Most Foul and Hot Wings and Homicide. We'll be talking about both of those books. You can imagine that with a food truck called Cluckin' Good, the chicken puns there's just a lot of room for chicken puns. And you will not be disappointed. These are really fun from what I have read so far. And so please join me for that conversation with Carmela as we talk about A Murder Most Foul and Hot Wings and Homicide food truck mysteries. Looking forward to having Carmela back on the podcast. In the meantime, I hope you're having a great week. I hope that you are getting some signs of spring, maybe even actual spring. I hope that you will do me, if you haven't done so already, I hope that you will like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're either listening to or watching the episode on. That is greatly appreciated. And as I've said, helps the algorithm, gets the podcast out. What helps even more is to write a positive review. So if that's something that you are comfortable doing, that would be amazing. Thank you in advance. It doesn't have to be elaborate. A sentence or two is great, but positive reviews are amazing to get the algorithm out. As a reminder, positive reviews for your favorite authors are amazing as well. I feel like the world runs on algorithms anymore, so you got to boost them however you can for the things that you like, just to keep them going and help show your support. If you're on social media, you can follow the podcast. Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Love hearing from you. So if you are on any of those platforms and following the podcast, please come and ask me questions or tell me what you're reading or tell me which authors you've read, new authors you've found, all of those wonderful bookish questions, because I love hearing from people who love to read. As I said, I hope your week is going well. We are smack in the middle of it. So I hope you have something great to look forward to this weekend. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. Maybe you're celebrating this weekend. Maybe not. Maybe you are just having a quiet weekend at home. Whatever it is, I hope it also affords you plenty of time to get yourself lost in a good book. Thank you so much. I will talk to you next time.